Her Excellency Madam Angela Merkel, Federal Chancellor of Germany. Your Excellency Madam Angela Merkel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, here in Copenhagen, more than 100 heads of state and government have gathered. More than 100 ministers of the environment, thousands of representatives of non-governmental organizations, many young people who, together with us, are very much fervently wishing for a solution, wondering whether we will be able to come up with a solution of the future issue, preserving our environment and finding an answer to the changes wrought by climate change. Will we be able to do that? Not at some time in the future, but in the next 24 hours. That exactly is the period of time that we have at our disposal until the end of this conference. I am aware of the fact that all over the world there is a lot of goodwill. But I'm also aware of the fact that many are somewhat disappointed at each other and over each other's position. And this is why what we absolutely have to do during this time that remains, during this conference, to consistently and steadfastly work to bring about a solution. Because when we go home and have to explain to our people why we have not been able to do something, this will be good for all those who don't want to do anything against climate change anyway, who don't want to do anything against poverty, who don't want to change their way of life. But it will be a terrible signal for all those who are expecting something from us for our world in the 21st century and who want to give a good future to this planet. And this is why I'm saying there's a broad consensus that we ought to follow our scientists' advice who tell us global warming must not exceed 2 degrees Celsius based on pre-industrialized times. And this means our emissions have to be halved until 2050, again related to the level of 1990. And this is what each and everyone agrees on. In my capacity as Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, as a representative of what traditionally is an industrialized country, I say to you that, of course, our contribution as industrialized country has to be brought first and foremost to the table. And the European Union has clearly defined its contribution. We've said we are willing to at least reduce 30% of the emissions, and we are ready for a midterm target until 2020 to reduce 20% related to 1990. And if other countries actually follow suit and make comparable efforts, we will go up to 30%. This is the offer that we put on the table. It is an offer to which many other industrialized countries have subscribed to. They have followed suit, and I do hope that many of you here in this room will also be willing to put a little bit more on the table so that we get to where science tells us we need to be, namely be on the path towards at least 25% in 2020, half of the 50%, and that we have already achieved that in 2020 and are on the right path. And we will be able to do that if we work together. But we also know the industrialized countries in and of themselves cannot shoulder this responsibility alone, but they have to live up to their responsibility. The second part of that responsibility means for me those countries that suffer most under the impact of climate change. That is the poorest countries, the small island states, the African countries, Bangladesh, to give you just one example, and many, many others we know of. Those who have not been able to benefit from industrialization and have not been able to lift their standard of living up to our level, they quite rightly expect us to help them in technology transfers, and they also expect us to give them financial support. And this is why we very, very quickly have to start with $10 billion over the next few years, 2010 and 11, and $100 billion in 2020. And we have to make this a consistent effort over many, many years so that the poorest countries in the world can give their contribution. Germany is ready to do that. Germany is ready to shoulder its fair burden. The European Union is ready to shoulder its fair burden. And today I noted with gratification that the United States of America, too, have made a very important step forward to such a long-term commitment so that the poorest countries may rely on this as well. And if our reduction obligations are the ones to which we commit, that we make them binding, that we say in financing we are ready and willing to make a binding commitment, then I think we will be able, that particularly the emerging countries, step by step, shoulder additional responsibilities and will also show themselves willing to bring this commitment into a binding legal framework, because we need to be able to compare what we do. Obviously, we have a common responsibility that is differentiated for countries such as China, as India, as other emerging countries. They too have now signaled to us that they are willing to give their contribution. It's very important, however, too, that all of this leads to a common legal framework and that we enter into binding commitments. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, financing, reduction, and also the question of commitments, also of the emerging countries, in a different way, in a different form. Not yet reductions, but a much more enhanced energy efficiency, and all of this leads to a package being brought together with which we can face the world public opinion tomorrow with confidence. We will not be able to work out all the little details, legal details, that is, but we will have put down a framework for a new legal framework for a new agreement to be agreed on later on. And ladies and gentlemen, I think we have that necessary strength and that necessary will to do that. If each and everyone does a little bit, contributes a little bit more, then we can do this. Germany and the European Union are ready to do that, to go that little step further, under the proviso that what science tells us, 25% related to 1990 by the industrialized countries is being seen and acknowledged by all of us. And all of us have to stand together, because there can be no doubt that this climate change agreement is a global agreement, because climate change can only be tackled globally. If we all work together, we need to help each other, but we also need to stand ready to change our way of living, our lifestyle. This is why technology is so important. This is why renewable energies are so important. This is why we need to come to a common understanding that we live on one and the same planet. The poverty of one is the poverty of the other. It will become the poverty of the other after a given period of time. So we need to stand together, we need to act together, and therefore my urgent plea to you is Germany and the European Union are ready and willing to open their arms, to be open-minded in this negotiated process and to bring this negotiating process forward. We know in the past we contributed a lot to bringing us where we are in climate change. We are, in many ways, the main cause of it. But we also know going it alone will not be our way out to combating it effectively. So this is a task for all of us. We need to show the world works together, as we did in the economic crisis and in the financial crisis. So please, let us all, in this spirit, work together over the next 24 hours, so that tomorrow, at this point in time, we will be able to meet again in this hall and to say and show that we have understood. We've understood the message. Life cannot go on as it was. The world needs to change. So, in this spirit, let us all work together fruitfully and